There, I'm Bev Murrell. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is a place where I just bring out some of the thoughts that I've been having during the week. And when I was a kid, one of the most asked questions to me and to all other kids I knew, and probably still is what do you want to do when you grow up? And that was really funny because, they ask it of incredibly young kids. What do you want to do when you grow up? And like, how would I know? And it's a good thing because the question that they asked when I was 10, by the time I was 25, some of those jobs didn't even exist anymore. And I know that and that's still the case, even more swiftly now. And so one of the things that I think about that is a better question to ask is not what do you want to do, but who do you want to be? And I think who do you want to be is a question that we can ask ourselves even as adults. And maybe we need to ask it on a regular basis, maybe every year, every couple of years, every 6 months. Who do I actually want to be? It's a better question than what do I want to do? Because who I want to be is made up of the multitude of decisions that I make and the direction that I go with those decisions. So every time I make even a small decision, so like whether I make the decision to give the money back or keep it because I need it when somebody um, gives me too much change in the shop. So they give me change for a 50 and I only gave them a 20. The decision I make is going to contribute to who I am and who I'm going to be. Maybe I'm married, but that other person looks kind of attractive. Like that's something that happens to everybody. But the decision that I make, do you know what? That's my cake timer. The decision that I make about whether I pursue that or whether I turn my eyes back directly to the person I'm married to, that's going to contribute to who I become. Every time I make a decision to do this or to do that, to do something that I kind of know isn't right, or suck it up and just do what I know to be right, I am reinforcing that person that I'm going to become. And that's pretty significant if you think that through like that. That's pretty significant. And so, who do I want to actually be is more valuable than what I do because I know that the generations that live now will probably end up having 4 or 5 professions. I'm a baby boomer, but I've had a few different professions in my life already. I know for you guys that is even more. And so, who I want to be is pretty vital. That's going to be the thing that will inform which way I go when I'm making the small decisions and the medium sized decisions and ultimately the really big decisions. And so I'm pretty sure that you will know this book. We did it when I was at school, in secondary school, and many schools do. Do you remember reading or hearing about The Lord of the Flies by William Golding? And if you don't know the story, it's a really ugly story. It was written in 1951, and William Golding wrote about a group of schoolboys that were on a ship that was shipwrecked, and they were the only people that ended up on the island. And so they intended to form a community, but they voted a leader for themselves and all the rest of it. But what happened within the process of that very quickly was that division came between them. And when they were rescued, which I think was about 2 months later, 3 of them were dead as a result of the actions of the boys. And the place was an absolute shambles. It was a story of complete destruction of human nature. It was absolutely terrible. And the insight that Golding was intending to give was that human nature will always disintegrate to become, it will always go downward. It will always go downward. And so, yeah, I always just hated that story. But just recently, actually this month, The Guardian put out an article by a guy called Rutger Bregman. And Rutger Bregman was writing about a true story that happened like that. So it happened in 1965, and he's speaking about this group of boys that were shipwrecked. And so one of the things that he highlights is the fact that William Golding had just come through the Second World War. He had talked about his own predisposition to align himself not necessarily with the Nazis' philosophy of life, but definitely with their actions. He had been troubled all his life with severe depression, and he was an alcoholic. And so a lot of what he wrote came out of this deep disillusionment with human nature. And so that was his perspective, and we still now are reading that in schools so many years later, 70 years later, actually. But Rutger Bregman finds another story of a group of boys who went to a strict Catholic boarding school in Tonga. And in 1965, 6 of them were a bit sick of life there, and so they stole a fishing boat and they went out in the boat. But then a great big storm came up, and so they were driven far off course, and they ended up being shipwrecked on a desert island, and they were there for 15 months. And when they were finally found, it was amazing the community they had built. And the only tool that they had actually was a penknife blade. But with that, they'd hollowed out tree trunks to capture water. They'd built a chicken pen because they found wild pen there. They'd built a gymnasium with weights. They'd built a badminton court. They developed a vegetable garden. They had a permanent fire going, which was always being, cared for. It never went out. There was a roster so that 2 people were working at any one time. When they quarreled, they put in a system of time out so that they could get some time away and then come back. One of the boys had made a guitar out of driftwood and half a coconut shell and 6 steel wires that they'd taken from the boat that they'd been shipwrecked in. One boy had fallen and broken his leg, and so they'd set the break with sticks and with leaves, and when they eventually got back to civilization, the leg had been perfectly healed the way that it was set. They started every day with a song and a prayer, and they finished every day with that as well. And so they had built this astonishing community. And so when they were rescued those 15 months later, those boys were emotionally healthy. They had grown in stature and in health and in well-being, and they just really done an amazing job. They were incredibly resilient. And so that, obviously that gave this guy who wrote the article a lot of hope. But it gave me a lot of hope too. Because I think we're in a situation now in the world where people are reacting in 2 different ways. Some people there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anger, a lot of division, a lot of blaming, a lot of accusation, a lot of, I don't really care what happens to you as long as I say stay safe. There's a lot of that happening. And then there's the other side of it, where people have decided maybe earlier on, or maybe they're just deciding it now, who they want to be. Not just what they want, not just what they want to do, not just how to survive. Because a lot of the stuff that we do is about survival techniques. A lot of the anger and the quarrels and the bitterness and the hatred and the inability to empathize is a survival techniques that we've developed when we were young. But the truth of it is that if we will regularly ask the question, who do I want to be? When the time comes to start making decisions, little decisions, medium-sized decisions, big decisions, well, the big decisions are made based on the medium-sized decisions. And the medium-sized decisions are based on the small decisions, just the little decisions. How much can I get away with? Or I'm not even going to try and get away with that because I want to be somebody different than that. I want to be somebody that other people know they can trust. I want to be somebody that causes the community to be better off because I've been part of it. I want to be somebody who has made even just my own little world a better place. We make those decisions one way or another. We make those decisions and we say, not what do I want to do or what do I want to have or how can I survive or, I'm so afraid I just have to protect myself. Or we say, who do I want to be? I want to be somebody that makes a difference for good. I want to be somebody that other people can rely on to know they're always going to tell me the truth, even if it's tough. To know they're always going to help me get through this tough time. To know that they're going to be a person who will strive to understand where I'm coming from rather than just shut me down and push me out. That's like such an amazing thought. To spend some time, I don't know how often, every year would be really good. Every 6 months, just to keep track on whether I'm on track or not. But who do I want to be? And I know that we've got the choice between the Lord of the Flies and these other Tongan schoolboys who were able to make sure that who they became was better after they'd gone through that really tough time than they had been before they even went there. And for myself, I think that too. COVID-19 or one day is going to be something that is dealt with in whatever way the people who understand those things will deal with it. But there'll always be another thing. It's not just COVID-19. This is actually about who we are and what difference we can make where we are. And so that's the thing that's really worth thinking about. Who do you want to be? Who do you want to be? Because whatever you make that decision, it's probably, don't just answer in a few words or a sentence. Sit down and think about it. Make some notes. Who do I want to be? Not how rich do I want to be? Or where do I want to live? Not that, not those things. What job do I want to do? Who do I want to be as a person? So that when the chips are about as down as they could possibly be, I am still that person. That's a great question for anybody to ask, and also a great question for us to help our kids look at as well. Okay, thanks. I'll see you next week.